There's physical. That's my favorite. There's freeze. And there's also melt plunge. He works in a lot of places. He works in a lot of teams. But is he trash? No. Well, yes, also kinda. But you can fix that. Or you can lean into it. Maybe a little bit of both. The best option by a pretty big margin would be Melt Plunge for his damage. Even though it kind of ignores like half of his kit or his intentions for how he's supposed to be played, this team does a lot of damage. And he's probably one of the best Melt Plunge characters in the game, especially when you get him C3. So that's why this team is probably going to be my first recommendation for most people if they have what it really wants, which would be characters like Jean Yun and Silali. Otherwise, a team like Freeze with the Scoffy Freminet also works really well. It's not as much damage as the Melt Plunge teams, and it's definitely nowhere near as focused on Freminet's damage himself in this team, but it still does a lot of damage, and it's another good option if you want to actually make him do a lot of damage in most cases. Now, as for the usually least powerful, but definitely my favorite team that he has, it would be Physical. His kit is mainly orientated around being a physical damage dealer, but unfortunately, as most people understand, Physical really is not great, and it never really has been. Even so, especially with newer characters like a Nefa, this team has been performing really well recently, and because of the fact that Freminet in combination with Mika doesn't really apply much cryo or element whatsoever, you can keep up Electro Charge or Lunar Charge, and have that as another form of damage to deal in scenarios where it's actually preferred, like a lot of new Abyss content is. If you play it well enough and you have well enough built characters, you can even clear some Stygian stages with it. So even though Physical is definitely the weakest and probably the most difficult one to play out of these three teams, this is also the one that I would love for people to at least try out before they instantly deem it as like unsavable, right? Because it commonly can work in a lot of places that people might not expect, mainly because he does have the damage if enemies are weak to Physical already, or enemies are weak to Lunar Charge or any form of Hydro, Cryo, Mixture, Element, or source of damage. He can work very well in those scenarios with this team. And if you don't have an Nefa, you can use Fischl there as well, and works quite well even then. And this is not me saying or telling people to play Physical over his other options, like Melt Plunge or Freeze, but I definitely want people to understand that physical teams around Freminet that can also make use of other reactions like Lunar Charge actually are not bad. And if you have a character like Mika to support him in this team, especially at C6, as I mentioned before, it can work extremely well. Depends on the content, as always, and I think all three of these teams will always find a place to coexist with each other. Because if you find an enemy like Cryo Automaton, right? The one that does like Hydra damage, and once you use a Cryo character like Skirk, if you find yourself going against that enemy, especially in one of the first floors of 412, or one of the first chambers of 412, I should say, and you're struggling with him, a Freminet with an Escaffier Freminet team will be really good there, but you won't particularly want to use a Melt Plunge team or the physical team. And just like that, If you instead end up fighting a enemy like the big Consor boss, well, you're gonna end up wanting to use the Melt Plunge team there instead, right? Because he's weak to Pyro, and using a Melt team is the strongest in that scenario if it doesn't have any resistances to it, right? At the same time, even though the physical team is generally the weakest, if you end up fighting an enemy like the Cactus or like the Knuckle Duckle boss, right? Against these bosses, you'll instead prefer using the physical team with Anefa and Freminet, if you plan on using Freminet, that is. It's because even though the Melt team, the Melt Plunge team specifically, or the Freeze team is stronger, against these enemies it is more shield towards having Lunar Charge instead. And having the core of Anefa and Freminet alongside Freminet and C6 Mika, it's one of my fastest clears on my account, and I it could definitely be the same for you as well if you decide to put time into these characters and build them. With all of that said, I will leave you with some informational 412 Abyss gameplay of the current 6.0 rotation, including the Freminet physical team I mentioned before. Let me know in the comments what else you'd like to see in the future, maybe other characters to focus on as well, or certain gameplay styles, and I'll see you later. Adios.
Give me a piece, I say cheese, cause this is my magic spell that makes the camera take your pictures, flash drives away your sorrows. We'll find shows tomorrow, will be a great day to hang out, even if there are always worries you can't hide. I'm by your side. Let's change outfits, uniforms don't define who we are. Let me clean out and shine in the sunshine star. When I try this up close and just well I'm doing all this will put me to sleep. Hiding on scared. Time to shine. Now's your chance.